Hi, I'm Jack Davis, and this is Bobby Maylack, and welcome to The Zone, where we're excited to talk to you about the real issues in sports.
Jack and I are huge sports fans, and we're really fascinated by what it's like to be a player, to be on the field, to be a general manager. And that's why we're excited to come here every week with amazing guests who can help show us that world.
We want to take you inside real issues, issues about social class within the locker room, political dynamics within the locker room, really get you inside the mind of what happens, because the locker room is a workplace. Take you inside all the elements that go into that. And on that note, we're excited to bring in our first guest, 6-year NFL running back, Khalil Bell.
Thanks, guys, for having me, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
So, Khalil, thank you for coming on.
No
you
problem.
are a free agent.
Yes, sir.
You've played with the Bears for a couple years. You finished with the Packers last year. Right now, OTAs and stuff are starting. You're still waiting for a call. What's that like?
It's really kind of tough, coming straight from college. I always had a set schedule, going from college to OTAs, having a little limited off season, but always being involved in team activities. So I think at this point in my career, the hardest thing is trying to always make sure you're in shape. I got to stay in shape year round when some guys can maybe take a break, because I never know when I'm going to get a phone call. So, at this point in time, it's just really staying in shape and trying to shape my future after football, because as I'm finding out, my career is slowly winding down. I'm on the back nine of my career. So just trying to figure out what's next, man, and keep working hard, and hopefully that opportunity comes, and when it comes, I'll be ready for it.
So that's something I'm really fascinated by. At what point in your career did you start thinking about life after football? Was it always? Was it in college?
Honestly, it was pretty recently, really. Everyone grows up thinking they're going to be a first-round draft pick, thinking they're going to make tons of money and, this, that, and the other. But, as I found in my career, sometimes things don't really work out the way you want it to. So, I've always had an idea of what I wanted to do, but football has been my life since, I was 10 years old. That's when I first started playing, and I told my parents I wanted to be an NFL football player. So it's been pretty recent that I've been, thinking about life after football, but in no way do I feel like I'm ill-equipped for that transition. You know what I mean? I didn't think about it much as a kid, but I knew that when the time came, I would be ready to make that transition smoothly.
Now, when you were in college, a lot of people talk about, when you were in high school and a star football player, or a player on a major Division I football program. Do you feel like you got the same education as other people? Obviously you've got these expectations outside the classroom. Do you feel like you had a different life?
I don't, and I think that people, granted there are exceptions to every rule, but I know myself personally, my parents were real strict on education. I had to bring home over a 3.3 just to even play sports. And that's B pluses for people at home that don't know. But my parents were real strict on education, so I always felt, especially in high school, that I got the same education as everybody else. And I felt in college that even though we had tutors and outside influences to help us in school, I felt that if you wanted to participate and you actually went to class and took notes and listened to what the teachers say in their lectures, then you got the same as everybody else. But to our defense, we do have a heavy workload in college as well. There are systems in place to help us succeed. So, I think it's a give and take. If you want to go full out the academic route and just strictly focus on that, you can do that. If you want to do football, you can do that with minimum effort in the classroom. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of life. But it's finding that happy medium that makes you complete.
Did you feel like you stood out because you put academics as like an important thing in your life?
Honestly, I did for a while, but when I saw that the finish line was the NFL, I kind of put academics on the back seat, still to this day even, just because I felt like the NFL is such a rare opportunity, and there's less than 1% of the population plays in the NFL. So I feel like taking advantage of this opportunity right now was more important than, getting that degree, because you can always go back to school. I know 40-year-olds. I was talking to the UCLA track coach the other day. He didn't graduate from college until he was in his late 30s. And he went to UCLA to play track. So you can always go back to school and always get a chance to fulfill your educational opportunities.
So do you think the NFL has prepared you for life after the NFL? Because that's something we hear a lot about in terms of injuries, concussions, players not having like the mental health anymore, or the physical health. Do you think the NFL has prepared you to for retirement?
Really, I don't think it's the NFL's job to. Now, I think they could do a better job, honestly, helping some of the younger players, especially. I think this year there was like 60 underclassmen who declared for the NFL draft, and I think only like 15 of them were actually drafted. So, I mean, that's a huge number compared to recent years. So I think the NFL can definitely do a better job of doing that, but I think it starts with self. You know what I mean? You gotta educate yourself. You gotta know realistically what your opportunities are in the arena of sports and in education. And if you get a full ride scholarship, then you know what I mean, that everything's taken care for you. When you get into the NFL, nothing is guaranteed. You know, you could be a third-round draft pick and you could be cut the next year. I mean, how many stories have you heard of first-round Jamarcus Russell, just to bring one at the top of my head? You know, great career at LSU, extremely talented. I don't even think he played 2 years in the NFL. So, you know, it's just it's more about knowing yourself and knowing what's important and what's not.
Now, you bring up a good point that it's not a fair game. It's ruthless. Do you feel like you got your fair shot?
You know, my dad told me a long time ago, fair is once a year, and that's in Sacramento. And so, you know, I don't really like to you know, say if I got a fair shot or not. The fact of the matter is I got my shot. I came from pretty much nothing, you know what I'm saying? I was the guy who was never supposed to make it, and I'm going on year 6. So I feel blessed in the opportunity that I got. Do I wish I got more opportunities? Of course I do, but at the same time, you can't cry over spilled milk, you know what I mean? There's millions and millions of kids who wish they got the opportunity to do what I did for the last 5 years. Millions, exactly. So, I mean, on one hand, it would have been nice, you know, to be a little bit more appreciated in my NFL career and get an opportunity to succeed, like a first rounder, second rounder, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, you know, I'm blessed, man. I've traveled the world. I've played in London. I've met some great teammates, still have some great friends. So it's worked out for me. So
let's use it to segue into talking about your NFL career and teammates. Last year, you were unsigned for much of the year. Was it week 12 you signed with the Packers?
Yes, sir.
So week 12 you signed with the Packers. That gives you 4 weeks left in the season. At this point, this is a team, Super Bowl aspirations, already a tight locker room. What's it like joining a team, joining a locker room that's been together for so long, and then you're thrown into there? Is it hard to adjust?
You know, it's a little challenging, you know, especially like you said, they had been through training camp, OTAs, won and lost games together, and here this new kid comes in, you know, I mean, you still kind of look at yourself as kids playing a kid's game. But, you know, it was kind of challenging, but at the same time, you got to know what you're there for. It's nice to have friends and to know people and to get along with people. I think that's part of the culture in the NFL is everyone wants to get along with each other in the locker room because that brings your team closer together. So, but at the same time, I knew what I was there for. I knew I had a job to do, and I was just going to be myself. And you know, that's an issue that can get you in trouble sometimes, and can also, you know, make you a great guy. Is just being yourself.
But you know, fans care so much about the performance, obviously, about the result. Fans live and die, especially in a place like Green Bay, where that's everything. The Green Bay Packers. Is it hard to get invested in whether the team wins or loses at that point? Because here you are, you're a hired gun, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're coming in just for 4 weeks. You know they might not pick you up next year. You've been through trials and tribulations, getting cut. You know, do you feel like maybe fans are more invested in winning or losing than some of the players?
I really don't. You know, I mean, I think fans, obviously, a town like Green Bay, who has a history of being a dominant football team, multiple championships in the NFL. You know, they're very invested. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't go out on the field and you can't give everything you have to give to help whatever it is, whether it's playing special teams, running the ball, throwing the ball, catching the ball, playing defense, I think that all matters. And as an athlete, I know that I want to compete at the highest level. In order to compete at the highest level, that means I got to give all of myself at the highest level. So when people say, you know, it's kind of hard to invest, it wasn't hard for me. When I became a member of the Green Bay Packers, I felt like I was a member of the team, and I would do anything to help that team win, whether it was returning kicks, blocking for somebody else, whatever it took. So, you know, like you said, it can be challenging, but at the same time, we're all professionals. I'm a professional. I've been in this league for, you know, going on 6 years now, and I know what it takes.
What was your first, like, I'm an NFL player moment? What was that like?
You know, I don't really think I had one because my road to the NFL was a little different, but I would definitely say my very first carry in the NFL was something special. Knowing that it's an NFL record and knowing that, you know, coming from where I come from, you know, people telling me I was too slow to play in the NFL, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't this, I wasn't that. I'd never go to college to play football, and, you know, I superseded all these expectations, and then to finally on my very first play in the NFL to, you know, set an NFL record is just something very special to me, and I think it's something that until it's broken, you know, will be something that I cherish for a long time.
What's that feeling when you see daylight?
Don't get caught. See, I've always been one of the guys that, I'm good for the first maybe 35, 40 yards, but after that I kind of run out of steam. Never been really the top end Chris Johnson type of speed type guy. But, I just try to run as hard and as fast as I can, and if I get caught, I get caught. And if I'm getting caught 70 yards downfield, I think most coaches would take that, you know what I'm saying?
So most coaches would take that, and it's funny you bring up coaches because that's something we want to talk about. So Chicago, you had, like you said, first carry breaks an NFL record. You have really good success when you're on the field, but you don't necessarily see the field as much as you might have wanted to. You've been in Chicago, you spent time with the Jets, you spent time with the Packers. What role does a coach play in maybe hindering someone's success or putting someone's success? You hear all about, oh, this guy was a bust, but then he found this coach in this system and he became a star. Or, what role do you think coaches actually can play in helping or hurting a career?
Well, first and foremost, I think coaching is the most important thing in the NFL. When you have a good coach and your team believes in that coach, the players will do whatever they need to do for that coach, and they believe in what he's telling them. If you got a coach who you don't believe in what they're telling you, you're not going to play. You're going to do your own thing out there on the field. But that's why all 11 guys got to buy into what the coach is saying. That being said, I think in coaching, as in life, ego plays into a lot. For example, if you draft a guy, if you go out on a limb and tell the GM, this is your guy, and you draft him, and he comes out and he doesn't pan out, you still want that to be your guy, as anybody would, you know what I mean? As any coach, as any player, if you pick a team in sports and, their team's not doing well, you're still going to go for that team, you know what I mean? So I think ego plays a big part into it, but I do have to say that, being a part of a team as like the Chicago Bears, who we had Lovie Smith for 4 years that I played for, was a great coach, great defensive coach, and our team bought into him. And, we didn't make the playoffs a couple years, but we went to the NFC Championship game, one game from the Super Bowl. Didn't work out thanks to the Packers, who I played for last year, which was kind of different. But, everyone has favorites, and that's just the way of life. And all you can do is just try to listen to whatever coach you have and do the best of your abilities and let the cards fall where they may.
How obvious are those biases? Like, do you in the locker room know, like, this guy's getting playing time because he's a first-round pick or he got paid?
I mean, people don't want to talk about it, but I mean, I've seen cases where it's evident that, a guy who was drafted over another guy is obviously going to get more of an opportunity than the free agent guy. See, I was undrafted, so I didn't get my name called on draft day. So when I came into camp, I had to, I had to perform, or else I was going to get cut. I wasn't going to get the same chance that a third-round guy got. And I knew that going in. And like I said, life's not fair. I knew it wasn't going to be fair, but at the same time, I knew when I got opportunities, I would have to make the best of those situations. So, it's tough. It's challenging, but it can be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen as often as you would like it to happen, because obviously you have money invested in certain players, this, that, and the other. But if you get your opportunities, it's your job to make them shine. What
players do you look up to then? Like, as a guy who is an undrafted free agent, are you looking to like a Tom Brady who's a 7th-round pick? Like, who do you have as role models in the league?
I wouldn't say really look up to guys anymore because I'm a grown man now.
Yeah.
And I mean, you grow up looking up to players like Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, things of those natures, especially running backs because that's what I play. But you definitely admire some guys. Close friend of mine in Chicago, Lance Briggs, all-world linebacker, has been doing it for years at a very high level. Played with guys like Brian Urlacher, Julius Peppers, you know what I mean? I mean, these are just guys on one team who are, future Hall of Famers in my opinion. And just to see how they come out year after year and continue to produce at a very high level and not fall off because they got the big contract or because they're they're on Sports Center or whatever, you admire that in people because it's very easy to get a bigger contract and sit at home and not do nothing. It's very easy to do. And I mean, there's been plenty of examples.
Yeah, how much do you see that in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, without calling names, there's been plenty of people who get big contracts and don't those don't end up panning out for those franchises. But to see guys like the ones I mentioned, just to come in every year, and every year I was there, they were pretty much all Pro Bowlers. And I mean, you just got to respect that. I mean, these are guys that I grew up watching in middle school and high school, and then I'm playing on the same team with them, and they're still having the same level of production. It's rare, and it's something to be admired.
So you talk about guys getting big contracts. I wonder what the class breakdown is like in the locker room, because everyone who's watching, us fans, we see here's all these professional athletes, and they're at a level above us, right? Like you said, less than 1% of the population is professional athletes. So for someone like me or Bobby, we're just watching and we're in awe, we're rooting, we're getting lost in the result. But the truth is there's a breakdown within the team. Because someone who's making $5 million, that's a lot more than someone who's making $500,000, even though that's a ton of money, $500,000. So I wonder what's that like within the locker room when you're next to this guy, he's making $10 million. Does that give him some type of credit in the locker room or on the field, or what's like the class breakdown?
Well, I really think that in the locker room, guys really try to keep the paychecks out of it. You know what I mean? I think if it was just paycheck driven, I think you would hear a lot more issues in the locker room. I mean, I've played with guys like Aaron Rodgers, who everyone knows what his contract was a couple years ago, and he's worth every penny of it, by the way. But I mean, just a cool guy in the locker room, making jokes, having fun. You know what I'm saying? I think guys want to they don't really talk about how much they make, nor do they want to, even though it's public record, you can go online and look it up. Nobody really looks at like how much you make and how much you making. And I think when you get into that kind of atmosphere, it poisons the locker room, because then there's a level of jealousy and animosity that can, rise up through the ranks. But it's the thing I've seen is to see the younger guys trying to compete with the older guys. That's the thing that I think has always kind of resonated with me was, being an undrafted guy. I didn't get no signing bonus. I didn't get no $5 million signing bonus. I didn't get no, I think I got $3,200 when I signed with the Minnesota Vikings coming out of college, and I paid a couple bills and I was gone. So, I was never one of those guys who try to compete with the other guys. I kind of stay in my own lane. I think that's a testament to my parents, how they raised me, how I was raised. So I think that's when guys can get in trouble, is when you try to compete with, Brian Urlacher's been in the league 13, 14 years and has, made his money and things of that nature. So you just got to stay grounded, and it's hard to do. It's very hard to do.
So you stayed grounded, but obviously there's examples of guys who couldn't, who the lifestyle gods to be trying to keep up. So what's that like when you see, and what's that like for you, someone who is grounded, someone who does have the discipline not to spend all their money, to see someone else who's going and spending recklessly when they don't have it? And can you give us maybe examples of that?
Once again, you can't. You don't want to give out names or anything, but I've definitely seen guys who overlive their means, spending more than they have, and guys like myself, especially being a undrafted free agent, and I'm looked upon as a veteran now. I've definitely tried to tell people, make them aware of some of the pitfalls of being a professional athlete, because there are a lot, even though people don't want to talk about it. There are a lot of pitfalls, and at the end of the day, everyone is grown. So I can tell someone until they're blue in the face, but they're going to do what they want to do. So you just got to try to be a good friend and just give them the best advice you can. If someone gave me advice as a free agent, guys have given me advice, and you just try to take it with a grain of salt and then make the best decisions you see for yourself.
How much interest do coaches take in this? I mean, are they seeing this and helping?
In my experiences, I haven't seen much of it. But once again, I wasn't a first-round draft pick. You know what I mean? So I don't know what kind of relationships coaches have with guys like that, because, quite frankly, we don't really talk about relationships with coaches as players. It's more like how we talk now: who's better, LeBron or Kobe? Who's better, Jordan or blah blah blah? I mean, this is the kind of chatter that goes in the locker room. Not, hey, did coach call you last week and make sure you didn't spend no money? You know what I mean? We don't really talk about that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think every situation is different, like I said.
But do you think there should be more of that? So I remember a few years ago, a wide receiver for the Broncos, Kenny McKinley, third-round pick, maybe fourth-round pick, commits suicide. They say part of the reason was his bills were mounting up. And that's the thing. Off-the-field problems will affect your on-the-field performance, right? I think people forget that professional athletes, it's a job. Mm-hmm. So if, I have a job and I'm making a certain amount of money and I'm living it recklessly, it's going to affect my performance at work. If debt's mounting up, if I feel like I'm overwhelmed, do you think there should be better maybe infrastructure in place to help?
Definitely. I definitely feel like there should be something in place to help the players. But once again, it's tough. You can't police 2,000 players, and especially when most of us come from impoverished backgrounds. A lot of us come from single mother homes. I'm not. Both my parents are still together. I'm blessed and fortunate to have that. But I mean, you got to look at some of the backgrounds that a lot of our players come from, and it's tough. It's tough to get through to a 22, 21-year-old kid who's got millions of dollars in the bank. I mean, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was just making league minimum when I got in the league. I did what I wanted to do, and I didn't care what anybody had to say. And so it's hard to get through to the younger kids, but I definitely feel like there should be more in place to kind of help people, and also steer them away from some of the people who got their hand out saying they can help and turn around and take your money, but you never get that back, or things of that nature. I mean, we've all heard the horror stories, guys saying I'll invest it for you, and then you ask for it back and it's gone. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of horror stories and things of that nature. But once again, I think education is what helps you to be better and making better decisions, because if you can educate yourself, then you don't have to go look for the NFL to educate you. You can educate yourself.
What's your relationship like with your agent? I feel like that's a responsibility that an agent should be taking. Someone who's signing you to a contract should be teaching you what you should be doing with it.
I agree. I have a great relationship with my agent. Now, it's kind of weird. I've actually switched agents a couple times and actually ended up coming to the guy I originally started with coming out of college. But I have a great relationship with him. We never really get into what I spend my money on or what I'm investing in. He's made it clear to me that if I ever wanted to jump in on maybe some of the things he's working on, and he wanted to walk me through some of the things he was working on, he'd always be amenable to that. But at the same time, I keep harping on this, but it goes back to your education. You know what I mean? If you educate yourself, then you can't look at anybody else but yourself. You can't say, oh, well, the NFL didn't prepare me, oh, college didn't prepare me, my agent didn't prepare me. And at the end of the day, my dad used to say, you never find a winner with an excuse, you never find a loser without one. So if you're looking at the NFL to, pick up behind you, or you're looking at your agent to pick up behind you, or your financial advisor to pick up behind you, then eventually there ain't gonna be no one there, and it's just gonna be stuck with you. So.
But isn't part of the problem not just that, oh, the NFL, you're looking to pick up the NFL, or you're looking at your agent pick you up, but these entities actually lead you farther down the wrong path sometimes, right? Because the NFL is putting you in a path where your physical health is at risk. You can have huge brain damage from playing even just one season in the NFL, where your agent might not be actually concerned about your financial wherewithal because they're just concerned about their commission. So to me, I feel like it's more than just, oh, you can't look for them to help you. They might actually push you down the wrong path. You look at most 22, 23, 24-year-olds, right? I'm 22 years old. I have a job. I don't have the means to go out and spend all that because it's regimented. It's, I know my salary is going to be this, and if I do well, it'll come and go up over the years. You're just given these big lump sums of money. So I feel like there needs to be more education. And do you think that some of these forces like NFL, agent, other players, the culture of the locker room actually push people to destructive choices versus just leaving them neutral?
It's hard for me to say that they push you to destructive, nature in a destructive, force, but I definitely feel like they could definitely help more. I'm not going to say that, the locker room or, if a guy pulls in with a, $200,000 car and your salary for the year was $300,000 as a, seventh round or undrafted free agent like myself, and then the next day you pull in with a $200,000 car, that's not the NFL's fault. That's your fault. So I definitely feel like they can help more, but I'm not going to go so far to say that they push you down these destructive paths. I think it's really like the anything you can do, I can do better syndrome. You know what I mean? Guys see guys in nice cars and nice houses, and they want those things. And there's nothing wrong with wanting nice things for yourself, but you also have to know how much you can spend. You got to know what is enough and what's not, and where you stand financially compared to some of these titans in the NFL who are making hundreds of millions of dollars. So, I mean, it's just, once again, I've said it 7 or 8 times already, it comes back to trying to educate yourself. And if you don't educate yourself, then you can't expect anybody else to do it for you, especially as grown men. Now, we're not talking about kids who are in school. I'm not talking about 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade kids, middle school kids, high school kids. We're talking about 23, 24, 25-year-old men. When you become a certain age, you're on your own. You know what I mean? My dad told me I was on my own at 18, fresh out of college or fresh out of high school. He said, when you leave this house, you can't come back. We broke your dish, we burned your bed. You can't come back. So you know what I'm saying? It comes a point where you got to step up to the plate and be a man about your responsibilities and figure out what you can and can't do.
What's something that happens in the locker room that me and Jack would never know?
Oh, man. Woo. See, you guys are telling me to break the cardinal code. You don't never talk about the locker room.
So maybe just something about like life as an athlete or things that happen that people wouldn't really recognize or be shocked by.
The locker room just imagine like you and your friends in your living room talking about TV, talking about your girlfriend, or talking about what you guys did the night before. That's what the locker room really is. There's nothing special that goes in the locker room. It's a private community. There's no cameras. Coaches aren't even allowed in players' locker rooms. So, it's kind of, there's a taboo there, but at the same time, it would be just like going to a bar with a bunch of your friends, minus the alcohol, obviously. No alcohol in the locker room. But I think something that people won't know is you got a lot of downtime especially like in training camp or between meeting sessions and stuff, and guys are always coming up with new creative ways to waste time. In terms of, in the Bears, for example, we made like Foursquare. We made a Foursquare, we played Foursquare. Someone brought a plastic bat in. and we taped up the ball, and we played home run derby in the locker room. We made like these fake basketballs and these fake basketball rims, and we would shoot and like play shooting games. I mean, it's just little kid stuff, and really, there's not that much time to mess around in the locker room. But anytime you got a free time, instead of just sitting there waiting for meetings, guys are always coming up with fun and creative ways to kill time.
So if the locker room is not this like crazy culture, which you say, which it sounds totally understandable, why do you think people on the outside are so fascinated by it? And you see like a Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito case, and people freak out like, oh my God, what's going on in the locker rooms? They need to change. There's all these articles coming out. That's what I'm trying to understand, the dichotomy between what fans seem so mystified by it, and when a story like that comes from the locker room, everyone goes up in arms. But you've been in so many locker rooms, and you're saying it's just like any other environment.
Well, first and foremost, let me start with saying that I think the Richie Cognito and Jonathan Martin situation, I wouldn't say something to that extreme happens in every locker room, but there is joking, there's making fun of people. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, some of the things that were said. I haven't been around personally seeing anything like that, but guys you're gonna get made fun of, and the thicker skin you have, the easier it is to kind of deflect it. Now, if you're gonna be the guy who's gonna, oh, you can't say anything to me, I'm gonna be mad, that's gonna show your teammates that you get mad easier, and they're gonna keep messing with you. It's just like the kid in class who gets mad every time you make fun of him. He gets mad, are you gonna stop making fun of him? I know I didn't. I kept making fun of him. So I think that's one thing. And the second thing I want to say is I think that people have such a fascination with what happens in the locker room because they don't know, because there's no cameras. They don't see anything that happens in the locker room. Media can't come in the locker room. Coaches can't come in the locker room. So therefore it's this like, ooh, I wonder what they're doing in there. And the thing is, like, we're not doing anything. Like, what do you guys think we're doing? Throwing parties or something? Like, I mean, we're just having a good time. We're playing Foursquare, home run derby, where one time we played dodgeball, the whole defense versus the whole offense, because we had like 15 minutes to kill. I mean, like literally.
That sounds like the most fun thing.
It literally is fun. It's just a
so
bunch
amazing.
of guys having fun, and we're all competitive by nature. So obviously we're gonna find things that we can be better. Whether it's the littlest, stupidest things, is shooting a ball into a trash can. It's just, it's just dumb things like that. So I think what people don't know, they want to assume is like this fascinating world of crazy stories. And I mean, yeah, we talk about, what'd you do last night? Oh, we went out and we went here last night, or I went here for Memorial Day weekend, this, that, and the other. But I mean, it's nothing like, it's just like going to a bar with a bunch of your buddies. You know what I mean?
There's these like epic stories of people like Lawrence Taylor going out the night before games, showing up, right before kickoff. How much did you see that? Was that something like you would judge?
The night before games?
Yeah.
Never. I never personally saw that. I never was involved in that because one, if you get caught, I mean, most teams have curfews when they travel, or even when they're at home, they have curfews. So I never saw anything like that personally, but I mean, guys do indulge in the nightlife, especially living in a city like Chicago. It's a wonderful city, and there's plenty of options in terms of what you can get into, at nighttime. So I've seen plenty of guys out. I was one of them. I had a lot of fun in Chicago. I enjoyed myself. So I think the level of responsibility you have to know what your limit is. And I think a lot of guys, myself included, as a young 21, 22-year-old kid with money in their pockets, it's hard to teach them control. But I mean, now as I sit here as a 27-year-old veteran, I can tell you that, I've calmed down a considerable amount. And if you're going out the night before a game, the game's not that important to you. And every game I've played has been important to me because I'm literally fighting for a roster spot. So I never really got involved in those kind of things, but I've heard stories of it. I've never seen it personally, but I've heard stories of it, and I'm just glad they didn't get caught because that fine's expensive.
Could you tell when a player was wasting their talent, when someone wasn't putting in the work?
I think that's kind of hard to say, just because everyone is different, and so everyone's level of work is different. My work ethic might be a little different than someone else's work ethic, but he might have more talent than me, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's tough to really just kind of sit there and be like, oh, he's not putting in that work to be a better player. And once again, that comes back to being a young man and really just kind of finding your own way. You know what I mean? Your whole life as a football player is pretty much laid out. Since the time I was in Pop Warner, I knew what my plan was. My plan: football, middle school, and get into high school, play football, get a scholarship, go to college. And when you get to college, your time is from school to tutoring to practice to whatever. Your time is pretty much plotted out for you. So when you get into the NFL and you have hours upon hours of free time, you know, that's when you kind of figure out how to, you know, you become your own man at that point in time. So, you know, like I said, there's a lot of pitfalls, but once I keep bringing it back, you got to educate yourself. You got to educate yourself on what to do, what not to do, and that comes with time and experience.
So I want to touch on one of those pitfalls, because the work environment, you know, like I said, this is a job of an athlete, has so much to do with confidence, I feel like. So you've talked about, you know, a guy has great work ethic, a guy has great talent. Like, how much do you think confidence comes into play? And be it in NFL team you've played for, be it, you know, watching an NBA player, because obviously you have a certain understanding of like other sports just by being a professional athlete. Have you ever seen someone who just lost their confidence and they couldn't play the same way, perform the same way?
See, it's hard for me to talk about other players. I can really only talk about myself because I don't know what's going on in other guys' heads. I don't know what level of confidence they had going into the game or going into the practice or mini camp or training camp. But I can say one thing about me. I think I'm the best football player walking the planet. And that's just me. And that's the attitude I've had since I was a kid. And I think that having that attitude, even though it could be a little in your face or abrasive or looked upon as arrogance or, you know, being cocky, I think having that attitude is the reason why I've been in the NFL for as long as I've been. It's the reason why I've made it, because I honestly feel like if you don't have confidence in yourself, then who's going to have it for you? So I can't really speak about anybody else, but I know that when I took the field, whether it was in the NFL, college, Pop Warner, high school, I always felt like I was the best player on the field, and I still feel that way. And given the opportunity, I feel like I can prove that.
Great. Well, it's just interesting to see that, you know, dichotomy of, like you said, you feel like you're the best. And, you know, someone at home watching that might think, oh, well, if you're the best, then why this or why that? But you need that, you know, and that's, I think, something that makes the sports environment so different, is that you have to believe you're the best. You know, if you walk in and you're entry-level position in a big company, you believe you're the best, you know, they might get rid of you. But in the NFL or NBA, that's the only way you're going to survive.
Well, I think, like I said, you know, from a very young age, I was always the guy told who couldn't do it. I was always the guy told that I wouldn't, you know, I remember one of the high school coaches I played for asked me to play defensive lineman. So, I mean, you know, me playing D lineman, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I bet he feels kind of foolish now, but I mean, just, you know, I was always, like I said, the guy who was told he wasn't going to make it. So I had to have that attitude, because if I didn't have that attitude, then I don't think I could be sitting in this chair right now discussing these things with you guys.
Once football's over, what's next?
I want to try my hand in the film and television world. You know, I took a lot of classes at UCLA in theater, and, you know, I'm really intrigued with it. I enjoy being on camera. I like smiling on camera, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I want to try my hand in that. But, you know, you always got to be prepared. So, I mean, there's only one Denzel Washington, only one Will Smith. So, you know, there's definitely other steps I want to do. I'm going back to school to finish my degree. And long term, in terms of what I want to do when I'm old and fat and wrinkly, like, I would like to be a coach and give back and help kids like my father helped me, like my mother helped me. You know what I mean? Reach back and try to help kids achieve their goals. Because, you know, I really think, I know my dad and my mom are proud. I mean, I know they didn't wake up one morning and put me in the NFL, but they gave me the tools necessary to succeed. So I think giving back and helping kids in that way would be just as good as being an actor. But I do want to act.
What's longer odds? What was do you think getting to the NFL was a crazier dream, or making it as an actor?
Well, see, my whole life since the moment I was 10 has been wrapped up in the NFL and making it to the NFL. So right now, the long shot is acting for me, because I just started it really about a year ago, really trying to, you know, get my feet in the door and, you know, try to get on this Hollywood scene. So I think right now that's the biggest long shot that I've ever had in my life, because, like I said, from the time I was 10, you couldn't tell me I couldn't play. I wasn't going to play in the NFL. I just knew it was going to happen. So right now, that's what I'm working on, and hopefully it'll work out.
If you could go back, you talked about helping younger kids. If you could go back to the Khalil Bell, who's in Vikings minicamp, who's 21 years old, what's one thing you would tell him?
The one thing I would tell myself going back, don't party so much. Like I said, I mean, Chicago's a very, very fun city. And, you know, I spent many nights, you know, in the club and, you know, at the bars and in the restaurants, you know, having a good time. And I don't think it really ever took away from my performance as a player. But just, you know, there's a time and place for everything. And I'm at the point now where I've kind of outgrew that portion of my life. But I would have tapped him on the shoulder and be like, hey man, just slow down just a little bit, you know what I mean? You're having a little too much fun. But you know, everything happens for a reason, and as my man Finding Forrester said, I'm still here and I'm still strong, so.
Well, Khalil, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate you guys, man.
Really
You guys got me over here
appreciate
sweating, so hopefully y'all can do some editing with that, you know what I'm saying? I'm over here sweating, glistening, all on camera.
Well, you're the one who's supposed to be in good shape. We're not the athletes here,
Hey,
and we're
man,
totally
I'm
cool.
sorry, man.
Jack has a pretty
I'm a
trendy
big
shirt,
body,
though.
man.
Yeah.
Look at that trendy shirt that Jack's
You guys match, man. You guys brothers?
Well, part of the trendy shirt is it has these air vents. It keeps me cool. I'm
Well,
always
let
just
me
calm.
borrow one next time, because I'm over here dying. In this,
The price of
this
looking good,
wool.
man. It's the price of looking good.
Khalil, can't thank you enough
Appreciate
for
it,
having us on
fellas.
there.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
Now, before we go every week, we're going to leave you guys just with a quick thought. I want to talk to you guys for just a moment where, you know, on Memorial Day, I was sitting there kind of reflecting, and I was thinking about what role models are. You know, on Memorial Day, we're supposed to be thinking about those who have served our country, and, you know, I remember that as a society, you know, while there's amazing athletes like Khalil who value education and push, you know, to be an amazing person, oftentimes we try to turn athletes into role models when that's not necessarily what they want to be. That's not necessarily who should be our role models. So I want to leave you by thinking about we need to look as a society about who's important, whether that's teachers, people who are giving an education, and our servicemen, folks like that.
So the one thought I want to leave with is about Duke lacrosse. Now, maybe I'm biased because I recently graduated from Duke, but actually the day I graduated, I watched the film Neighbors with Bobby, and in that film, Seth Rogen's talking to a college counselor, and they make a joke about, you know what a bad headline is? Duke lacrosse rapes stripper. And everyone laughs, and it's a movie, but the truth is that team and those players accused were innocent. And the stigma around Duke lacrosse is not only unfair, but has been lasting. And having spent 4 years at Duke, you feel it. And you see the stigma in media representations, you see it at the school, and the Duke lacrosse players were so slandered and turned out to be innocent. And now Duke yesterday won its second national title in as many years. The program's won 3 national titles in 5 years. And I would love to see the narrative, the old false narrative of Duke lacrosse players being, you know, mongrels, replaced with the fact that this program has rebuilt itself. 3 championships in 5 years, a true phoenix rising from the ashes type story. And at Duke, having spent 4 years, you feel it. You feel the stigma of that story. You feel that weight. When you say you go to Duke, that's one of the first things brought up. And the truth is the program is not like that. The program has rebuilt itself. And I would love to see this second national title in 2 years, third title in 5 years, be celebrated, and a new understanding of Duke lacrosse ushered in.
They should also be commended, because if you think about this, Jack, these guys were all in high school, in middle school when this happened. If you think about the bravery, you know, I'm a Johns Hopkins fan. I hate Duke lacrosse. That said, when I think about these kids who are committing to play to this school and facing that stigma, facing that adversity, it's a pretty incredible thing.
And you know, they carry that burden. You know, if you're, like I said, one of these players now, you said perfectly, they might not even known what Duke was at the time. They probably were just starting to play lacrosse. And they carry the burden of something that happened not only long ago, but those players were innocent in the first place. So it's very unfair to the players that carry this burden. You know, I'd love to see that negative stigma, as I've said, gone from Duke lacrosse. And, you know, congratulations to those guys winning second national title. Thank you so much today for joining us on The Zone. We hope you enjoyed our program. We hope you enjoyed hearing some issues you might not hear on the normal sports show. We're going to be in every week. We want to touch on these issues. If you have any thoughts on a subject you want us to touch on, you know, leave it in the comments, tweet at us, anything like that. We just want to bring the issues you don't normally see and might want to hear.